Straight talk, straight answers.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And welcome. Welcome to our eighth episode of Straight Talk, Straight Answers. This VA OSDBU podcast is designed, as I always say, to demystify federal procurement and give veterans and small businesses real, straight talk, straightforward information and insight into how we succeed in today's acquisition environment. During these episodes, you'll get candid explanations. We want to give you real practical guidance and answers to your most pressing questions from the officials sharing federal buying and the federal buying power. For today's episode, I am so pleased and honored to welcome another key leader in VA procurement, Mr. Ron Hirtle. Ron is the Director of Contracting Services, and he's truly an advocate for competition at the National Cemetery Administration. I want to say first, thank you, Ron, for being here. But before I turn it over to you, I want to be able to say that when we talk about cradle to grave, the National Cemetery Administration, they truly do it and they do it upright. When we talk about customer service, when you're at end of life and also have a family, it is so critical and very important that they receive the honor and dignity that they deserve, as well as the family. For the National Cemetery Administration to have a 98% customer service rate, that's unheard of, even in the private industry. So hats off to the National Cemetery Administration. To go a step further, when we talk about procurement opportunities for our service disabled veteran-owned small business, our veteran-owned small business community. NCA doesn't just talk about it. You are about the business. And as a result of it, your numbers show. And I hope that you will share that information with the audience today. So before I go on any further, Ron, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me here, Chanel. So it's my pleasure to be speaking with everybody today about the National Cemetery Administration. I just want to add that there's one more thing that was added to my title. Not only am I the Director of Contracting, but I'm also the head of the contracting activity here at NCA. So I actually have three hats that I wear.
Wow.
So I kind of describe it like the National Cemetery Administration and my office is small but mighty. So we're a small team, but I'm hoping out of this session you'll see that we have a tremendous impact on both the VA and our veterans and their families.
Well, thank you so much, Ron. And so I'm not going to take up any time. We're going to jump right into this because I really want people to know about the NCA. I want people to know about how they navigate the federal contracting space when they want to do business with the National Cemetery Administration. As we all know, this is a daunting experience when you're working with any agency. But when you're talking about the Department of Veteran Affairs, we're the second largest federal agency. There are a lot of moving parts. And so with that, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. Many of our veteran-owned businesses and in the small business community, they don't know about VA's main business lines. They aren't sure of the various offices and what roles they play in opportunities for the department. So from your perspective, I would really like for you to shed some light on some of the main business lines. And what we really want to start out with is the National Cemetery Administration, just to give us an overview of the mission and just to give us as well as the mission within VA. So over to you, Ron.
Excellent. So the National Cemetery Administration, or NCA, is a part of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Our main focus is to honor our veterans and their families by providing them with dignified final resting places as a tribute to recognize the service and sacrifice of the veterans that serve our country. This includes operating and maintaining over 157 national cemeteries across the country, as well as providing support to state, local, and tribal cemeteries. And we do this through providing memorial products like headstones, veteran markers, medallions on those markers and headstones. And we also provide a presidential memorial certificate, which is signed by the president, that goes to veterans and their family members. Jumping into the NCA mission, it's really about respecting and remembering all our eligible veterans, active duty service members, and their families. We work hard to create national shrines, and that's the kind of the focus on the National Cemetery Administration. When you go to a national cemetery, it is like going to a national shrine. This serves as both the final resting place and the enduring tribute to the sacrifices these individuals as veterans have made. So our promise is that we will care for our departed veterans and their families in an environment where the national cemeteries are upholding shrine standards. In terms of their operations, there's a dedicated contracting office. My office is made up of 41 contracting professionals, and we handle a variety of purchases, ranging from small equipment buys, inscription services, and purchasing these markers and headstones, and into construction needs as we build more cemeteries or we do recurring maintenance or non-recurring maintenance on these different cemeteries. We primarily focus on areas like heavy civil engineering construction and landscaping services, which includes like ground maintenance types services as well, like cutting the grass, janitorial services. Looking ahead, the priorities for the next fiscal year center on expanding our access to the burial benefits and enhancing the ways that we memorialize our fallen veterans and their families. To streamline the procurement process, I'm just going to kind of mention we use various contracting vehicles. We use a lot of blanket purchase agreements or BPAs. And we also heavily use IDIQs, which are indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity type contracts. And kind of finally, we actively encourage small businesses kind of to focus to register with the SAM system, understand the NCA needs, and actually participate in any industry briefings and new opportunities that are out there, and there are many for the National Cemetery Administration.
Okay. So, I want to go back just a little because you did say something that I really want the small businesses to hear, that your focused areas and some of the things that you talked about in that had to do with everything from, as you were talking about, heavy civil engineering, construction, landscaping services. You talked about headstones. There were, the irrigation, land, making sure headstones, markers, products across those various things, the dignity and respect. These are things where the small business can really get involved. And I like that you talked about the various vehicles that are out there, your BPAs, your IDIQs, and actively encouraging small businesses to register in SAM. So with that being said, and the impact, looking at the priorities, let's talk about a little bit, we talked about the mission. I really want to look at the priorities and how they impact the veteran-owned small businesses. And one of the things that you said, it's very clear that the organization is dedicated to being meaningful, to that lasting impact, that last right, not just in honoring those who have served, but also in building strong partnerships with the business community, with the priority being our service disabled veteran business community. We're vet first, not vet only. However, with that in mind, I like to look ahead. What are some of the NCA's top priorities as we approach FY 2027, fiscal year 27? How might these impact veteran-owned small businesses as well as the business community?
No, that's a good question. So as we're looking for at fiscal year 2027, um, there are a couple of focusing that we're looking at some key priorities. Um, so we want to expand the capacity of our cemeteries as the number of veterans and their families are requiring burial and those last rite services. We're looking to expand our cemetery capacity, and that not only includes just the national cemeteries, but some of the efforts where we're building cemeteries in rural and urban areas.
Mhm.
They're a little bit less populated, but still require the needs of burial for our veterans and their families. We want to modernize burial services, focusing a lot on artificial intelligence, providing that service, the best that we can. And then we also want to improve our maintenance standards. The focus goes back to of the shrine standards. I often say, and the leadership here at NCA often says that we get one chance to do it right, as that lasting tribute to the veterans and their families. So we want to make sure that the top that we're performing at top capacity and providing these services to the veterans and their families. So that goes to the small businesses and the veteran-owned businesses that are helping us doing that. We're looking for the best and the most capable to do these different efforts. As I'm looking into FY 2027, these efforts are expected to open new opportunities for veteran-owned and small businesses to participate. And the areas that I see that is mainly in construction, again, in that landscaping, that ground maintenance and janitorial type functions, and then various other type support contracts. By boosting procurements from these businesses, what we're hoping to do is to drive economic growth and make it easier for veteran business community to access VA contracts. It goes back to, you alluded to the 98%, and that's where the focus is we want to be the best of the best of the best. And that rating, that customer service rating, which is the highest in all service industries across public, private, and the federal government, that's how we're able to do it. Putting our best people and our best contractors in supporting our mission, and also taking care of those burial and the burial benefits for our veterans and their families.
So let me ask you, Ron. We talk about that customer service, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to just talk a little bit about some of the extraordinary accomplishments that NCA has done over the years, because that is very impactful and it speaks volumes to NCA. So can we go over a little few of those accomplishments?
Yeah, so let me give you some specifics. So I love to brag on NCA, and I also like to brag on my folks. So I actually came over to NCA as the director of contracting at toward the end of FY20. So when I look across the 5 or 6 years that I've been here, I go back to FY21 where it all started, at least for me. And I did put an emphasis on women-owned small businesses, and I had come from the Veteran Health Administration side of the house, and I started to look at what women-owned small businesses and women veteran-owned small businesses. I mean, you can quote me on this, but I think I am the one that coined the phrase of unicorns. But I made an effort that NCA was going to be one of the first that was going to meet and exceed that women-owned small business goal. So I put that as a priority in FY21, and I can honestly say that in FY21 we beat the 5% goal. We met all and exceeded all the other goals. NCA has consistently done that over the last 6 years, but FY21 was the starting place for the focus on that. Now that continued into FY22 as the number of contracting actions and dollars increased. I was happy to be able to say in FY22, 2 years in a row, we surpassed the women-owned small business goal. And again, that year, FY22, is when we were rated 97 on that American Customer Service Index. Again, all of our socioeconomic goals were either met or exceeded. And then moving into FY23, our construction budget and our buys increased. We actually started. We awarded about $345.3 million that year in FY23. And again, my comment here is, women-owned small business smashed third year in a row. The goal was 4% that year. We actually were at 6.36% in FY23. That year we also started to do a lot of outreaches to small businesses. We were at the SAME conference, which is a construction conference. We did a lot of matchmaking that year with women-owned small businesses and small businesses. A lot of small business summits. It was mainly myself and my small business liaison, and we took a couple of our chiefs with us to some of these events. FY24, again, high dollar amounts. We awarded 3,449 actions, which was about $329 million. Again, exceeded the women-owned small business goal, fourth time in a row. That year, I take some pride for our organization because the goal was 5%. We actually did 9%. So we almost doubled the goal in FY24. And that continued last year in FY25. Again, we high numbers of actions. We had 4,112 actions, about $360 million. Again, we smashed not only the women-owned small business goal, but the hub zone and small disadvantaged business goals. And then, of course, we continued the outreaches. We actually did a number of outreaches last year in FY25. Again, we were at the SAME conference, a few women Chamber of Commerce meetings, a lot of outreach, which was mainly matchmaking, both at the national and at the local and district levels. So over a 5 or 6 year period, I think NCA has worked very hard to reach out to the small business, and especially, like I said, I had put it as a priority, reaching out to women-owned small businesses. And again, that whole concept of the unicorns being those women veteran-owned small businesses.
Okay, thank you so much for that. But I do want to kind of go back to something that you said when you talked about the priorities and you looked in regards to construction, landscaping, and various support contracts. But you hit on something where you talked about AI, artificial intelligence. You also talked about maintenance. For the small business community, the veteran community, when you talk about artificial intelligence within the NCA, what are we talking about? What does that look like, and how are those opportunities available for veteran businesses?
Yes, so that's an emphasis that our Undersecretary for Memorial Affairs, when he has put out a mandate for the modernization. When we're talking artificial intelligence, we're talking of course, artificial intelligence to be incorporated into the procurement
Uh-huh.
and the acquisition process. That is one part of it.
Uh-huh.
The other part of it is how we deliver our burial, those markers and headstones and those presidential memorial certificates. Is there a way to use artificial intelligence to be able to improve that process or streamline it? And as well as I think not only is that just an emphasis by the National Cemetery Administration,
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's a veteran and actually administration goal to incorporate AI, artificial intelligence, into not only our contracts but into with the services and products we supply.
Okay. You said that by boosting the procurement from these businesses that you hope to drive economic growth and make it easier for veteran businesses to access VA contracts. So along those lines, enhancing the NCA engagement with the small business, you did talk about several outreach opportunities, what you've been doing and growing and becoming more dynamic with that over the years. But and thank you for sharing those priorities. But I also want to look to help business better understand how to engage with NCA. Could you share some contracting vehicles that you used? And do you have any recommendations for how businesses can increase their visibility and competitiveness when pursuing opportunities? We know market research. We understand you have to be visible to understand that. And you also spoke, when you and I had spoken earlier, you said, hey, you know what? We do something that other people don't do. We have hybrid models, or we use in a hybrid contracting vehicle. First of all, what is a hybrid contracting vehicle? Can you explain that to them? And then let's talk more about increasing visibility for those veteran business owners.
Okay. Well, the NCA, we utilize several contracting tools
Uh-huh.
to address our government needs. I mentioned earlier blanket purchase agreements. We actually have a couple of blanket purchase agreements that is mainly focused on equipment, buying equipment. And when I'm talking equipment, I'm talking like Kubotas. I'm talking like utility vehicles, dump trucks, backloaders, backhoes. We have a blanket purchase agreement for tree services. During incidents where we have like a storm that goes through, we have to quickly be able to address when trees are falling, or to have them removed, and so that we can keep access to the cemeteries is the main focus. We predominantly use indefinite delivery and indefinite quantity type contracts, IDIQ type contracts, where we do a lot of our ground maintenance type services, our janitorial, and like turf renovation, cutting the grass, mowing, like I said, janitorial type things. Various things that you would do in a ground maintenance type environment. And you got to remember, we have national cemeteries, which are large type cemeteries. We also have smaller type cemeteries. And right off the top of my head, like Cheyenne, Wyoming, is a very small cemetery there. So often, what we have in those places, we have what we look at as turnkey type contracts, where the contractor's doing pretty much the ground maintenance, is doing the cutting of the grass, installing the headstones. In some cases, we have contractors that are actually doing interments, interring veterans and their family. So one of the issues that we ran into, or one of the things that we used when you mentioned the term hybrid, and I believe NCA is the only one that's doing this. And again, I think I'm the first one, or we're the first ones that are doing this, is writing contracts that include both service and construction type tasks or CLINs on them. And just a little bit of, if folks on this call aren't familiar, so service type contracts actually do Service Contract Act type requirements. The payment is through the Service Contract Act. Construction type is Davis-Bacon. So in a hybrid contract, we're combining both of those. We have CLINs that are service type contract CLINs, and we have construction type CLINs on there. So those contracts include both the Service Contract Act requirements and the Davis-Bacon Act type requirements in there. And those are geared more toward, like I said, the smaller type of cemeteries, but we've also done them in the larger type cemeteries because the focus is to be able, to perform a great number of the services at the cemeteries. But we see it more on the smaller type contracts. And like I said, the term we use is a turnkey type contract. And that is probably the biggest area where I see small businesses is in those areas. And I'm just going to name some of the cemeteries like Cheyenne, Wyoming, Fargo, North Dakota. These smaller type cemeteries that some of the larger type businesses are like, yeah, you know what, it's not worth our effort. That's where I see the niche for small businesses is in those small, what I would say is urban, rural type cemeteries. And then a lot of different involvement from small businesses, veteran-owned small businesses, service disabled veteran-owned small businesses on some of these larger type contracts at the larger national cemeteries.
Okay.
So, I spoke about IDIQs. I spoke about the BPAs. We also use the GSA government-wide acquisition contracts.
Okay.
We mainly do that on some of our type, more of our supply type orders, some equipment type orders, and that's mainly just to speed up the ordering and reducing our procurement lead times. Then the other big part that NCA does is we have a multiple award task order contract, which is called the MATOC. So we actually have one for construction, and we actually have one for architect and engineering. What that includes construction projects like non-recurring maintenance and minor construction type projects. These are pre-competed contracts. They allow us to quickly solicit and award task orders. And this is just to ensure that, we have timely execution of these construction needs across all of our NCA cemeteries. The current MATOC for the AE and the construction, so we just awarded it within the last year or two, and their base plus 4-year contracts. It's 25 MATOCs, 25 MATOCs, and it's across the 5 districts that make up NCA, and the duration is up to 10 years. So it's a base plus 4, but then there's an option for an additional 5 years. And what we've seen over the last couple of years, and we've used MATOCs in the past, they significantly streamline the construction process. And so, there's opportunity. There's opportunities in there, probably more on a subcontracting level, because like I said, these AE and construction type MATOCs were awarded. I believe the construction one was awarded last year, and the AE one was awarded just prior to that.
So if I could ask, Ron, you and I spoke, and you said, as we talk about the different type of contract models that are available, We also talked about with our veteran community the certification, making sure that you're certified and that you're multiply certified. If you're service disabled, if you're a veteran, if you are in a hub zone, 8A, small disadvantage, whatever, or woman veteran owned small business, that when you're going through that certification, make sure you check all those blocks. They're very important. But you also said, hey, there's also vendorization. We run into that often with our veterans or with our small business not being vendorized. So certification is different from vendorization. Please talk about that.
Right. So on the certification, being certified as a veteran-owned business or a SDVUSB, it is different than the vendorizing. When I'm talking vendorizing, I'm talking more of the payment system, and it's actually the vendorization, so that in the SAM system, we're able to have we're able to pay you through our finance system. We are required, we cannot do a contract unless a business is in the SAM system. So when I'm talking vendorizing, that's what I'm talking about. That process of being actually in the system so that we can award you a contract. Now, where this comes up quite often is when we have emergency type buys. Many times, there are, when we're doing our market research, we will find a veteran-owned business or an SDVUSB, but they're not vendorized. And because it's an emergency situation, we don't have the time to wait to vendorize that vendor. So we need to move to another vendor. So that's what I mean when I say vendorization, is that actual process of going into the SAM system and making sure that your business is within that system, and that allows us the eligibility to be able to award to you.
So for many veteran business and small businesses, knowing how to get started, it's just the first step. Building meaningful relationships, partnerships, understanding, and staying connected with the right relevant people at NCA can make a significant difference in navigating the procurement process and standing out as a competitive marketplace, because competition is important, market research is important, etc. With that in mind, what does NCA engage, or how does NCA engage with the small business community? And what avenues are available for business to connect with your team? How do they reach you? How do they get in contact in contact with you? How do they touch and build those relationships?
Okay, that is an outstanding question. So I'm gonna right up front, I'm gonna give you we because we're a small organization, like I said, we only have about 41 people. The best way to contact us is through our small business liaison, and that's Tyra Lee. I would write down her email address is Tyra, TYRA .lee, LEE, at va.gov. She is our small business liaison. You can also reach out. Well, you can reach out to her, because then she can provide. I have myself, and I have 3 contracting chiefs. 2 are services. And basically the districts are broken up into 2 service chiefs, and then I have a construction chief that is over all of the construction contract actions that are in NCA. But Tyra Lee is your best resource, and I would say to boost your visibility, your business visibility. There are a few strategies I would recommend. Like I said, it's a good idea, and I would say it's almost imperative that you register with the SAM.gov system to get vendorized in that system. Again, that is really important for getting noticed. and allowing us the ability to be able to award to you. Next, I would advise to try to attend, if possible, VA procurement training sessions. Any type of training that's out there, whether it's with the VA or other avenues, to just get more insights into the procurement process and into the procurement training type things. I highly suggest getting involved in NCA outreach awards, NCA outreach events. Like I said, a number of my folks, including myself, are in networking and outreaching sessions. We're in matchmaking sessions. Again, because we're a small office, we're kind of stretched a little bit thin in attending every outreach session, but we try to attend as many as we possibly can, especially the national ones. So in networking with folks, our VA officials, I think that is key. And then this kind of plug for joining and being part of veteran business organizations. I think is a key thing to help strengthen those connections, not only with NCA but other parts of VA and the small business and veteran-owned small business community. And what I would on the final kind of thing, I would say, keep communication open. Always communicate with us, and be ready and be responsive to NCA needs. Really, what I've kind of presented to you is key to setting up your business, and not only to be successful in the NCA with NCA requirements and needs, but it also sets you up for success in the VA marketplace.
So much. Let's setting up for success is truly important. Let's talk about direct access. Can you share any information? Are there any upcoming industry briefings or outreach events planned for NCA where small businesses can learn about opportunities and requirements? Are there anything coming up in the near future?
We are looking to in NCA, we're looking to standardize the ground maintenance type functions, the ground maintenance types type tasks. So I would anticipate probably in FY27, probably around the springtime, that there probably more than likely will be an industry day or RFIs going out to get industry inputs. By streamlining, and we've picked ground maintenance type activities, which is mainly focused on like grass cutting, and no, janitorial type things. That is probably the biggest thing that's going to be out there as far as kind of like an industry day.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we also NCA, not only just our contracting office, we hold frequent industry briefings, and like I mentioned, the outreach events, both local and national. Like I mentioned, the SAME conference, which is mainly toward construction, and I believe there's a National Veteran Small Business Conference that we're planning on attending, along with VHA and VBA. And so that's all geared toward trying to connect with our veteran-owned and our small businesses. Again, these events are a great opportunity to get updates, real time and face-to-face on all procurement opportunities that we have, not only NCA but VA. You also have the opportunity to get some tips face-to-face with some of our VA contracting professionals on the VA contracting process. My key thing, my foot stomp on this would probably be, to make sure that you keep an eye on VA and NCA websites, the forecasting that's put out there, market research that's put out there, responses to RFIs, requests for information, anything that you kind of see that's NCA related. And we put out, like I said, Tyra Lee as my small business liaison can give more information on announcements and events that we plan on that are upcoming, and even on how to register and participate in those type of events.
Thank you so much. Now, let me just jump back for a second. When you start talking about NCA and opportunities for small businesses, and we're looking into the community, do you all do the majority of your contract? And I don't want to put you on the spot. Enterprise level? Are they local, regional? Because you would think that they may want to find people within their community, within their state, within their neighborhood. But how are the majority of the contracts done, or is it depending on what the opportunity is?
It's mainly on the opportunities, but we of the 157 different cemeteries, we kind of focus. It's a mixture. It's a mixture of all those things. We've done contracts that are just mainly cemetery specific. We've tried to do some regional type, district type contracts. And the only nationwide contracts that I'm aware of are probably on the headstone, the purchases of the actual granite and marble headstones are national contracts, but that's a particular kind of niche type market. Because there's only a few quarries that actually provide the marble and the granite for NCA headstones and markers. And those quarries are very kind of specific on who they do business with. That's the only nationwide contract. Now we're trying to look at doing nationwide contracts. But because the NCA mission is so unique and we're focused on, shrine standards, it's a little bit more difficult, and that's kind of the push that we're trying to go toward. Like I said, in this ground maintenance standardization project that we're kicking off this year, and it'll go for the next couple of years. And where we're going to be looking for industry response and industry day in the spring. That's what it's moving toward. It's moving toward possibly looking at, maybe doing a regional contract or possibly even a nationwide contract. Now that goes into a lot of variables and things that I don't really want to go talk about in this session, because it just opens a huge can of different pros and cons.
Well, thank you so much, Ron. I know that it's very important to have that intimate care and to be able to meet where families are during this time. So the fact that you all do keep it within the state, the community, it's also very comforting to the families as well. And it's also an opportunity for our veteran community to have procurement opportunities. One of the things you talked about is customer satisfaction, and we want to continue to have that customer satisfaction, provide the opportunity for our small businesses to have these procurement opportunities. We talked also about how to do business and some of the things that you all are actually buying. I thought it was very interesting as you spoke about janitorial services, the maintenance service, support services. People don't normally look at that when they think about the National Cemetery Administration. So please, I thank you for talking about that into our small business community. Please look at those opportunities when you think about NCA and you think about your product or services that you have, and you're thinking only NCA as being from a maintenance ground perspective. There are so many other things that they do. And thank you for sharing that, Ron. Before we go on and we reach the conclusion of this episode, I would like to respond to a few questions from the audience. So we will open up at this time to our audience if there are any questions that anyone has.
you, Ms. Bankston Carter. At this time, there are no content-related questions.
Okay. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. Ron, then that gives you a few more minutes, because what I would really like for you to do is that we've covered a lot of ground today. We've covered from what you all have done over the years, the consistency in the delivery of care. You talked about about how to do business to a small degree with NCA. You gave information on your small business liaison, who is amazing, Tyra Lee, and how to gain access. I love that slogan, small but mighty, and that's what you all are. You talked about some of your sweet spots in everything from ground maintenance to engineering to janitorial support services, etc. You talked about many of your contract vehicles, from MATOX to hybrids to BPA to IDIQs, etc., and to make sure people are on the GSA schedule and various things registered in sam.gov. You talked about vendorization, how important that is, especially when you want to get something done quick and fast, to ensure that that person is vendorized so that they can get that money. But I want you to look at the audience at this time. And if there's one thing that you would like, one or two things that you would like to say to them in order to do business with the NCA, or you would tell them as a small business that they need to do to help prepare for doing business with the Department of Veteran Affairs and NCA, what would that be?
Yeah, it's in line with what our focus is. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, we only get one chance, one opportunity to do it right, in providing these last and final benefits to our veterans and our family. It's a key thing with my folks, the people I hire, that work for me on my staff. I take pride in the best of the best of the best. My focus, my staff is very focused on serving our veterans and their family, providing the best product and services we possibly can. Contracting has always kind of, been a little bit of an enigma, because a lot of times we're like, okay, you can't do it this way. We cite the FAR and different policies and regulations. But our focus has always been, okay, but here's the way that you can do it. So what I translate that into, I see that passion and that focus in the folks that work for me, which is the same passion and focus that I have. And I look at that for our contractor community, and mainly our small business and veteran-owned business. For our veteran-owned small businesses and our STVUSBs, these are our brothers and sisters that we're serving. We're actually providing services to our own. So that is the focus. When you're doing business with NCA, bring your A game. In your providing your services, whether it's construction or ground maintenance or janitorial. That's what we're looking. We're looking for our small business community to be partners with us to help us achieve that 98% customer satisfaction with our external customers, which are our veterans and their family members. And it's key to doing that, because a lot of our cemeteries are actually, the services are done by contractors. So there's a lot of pride in knowing that the contractor community is a significant part of that 98%. And so that's what I try to foster, not only internal in NCA in my organization, but I ask that companies or small businesses that are doing business with NCA to keep that as in their front of their mind, and be looking for those opportunities with NCA. We're always looking to doing things better. We're always looking for the best ways to provide. The most important mission, I think, in the entire world is taking care of our veterans and their families, that not only that not only have earned those rights and privileges and benefits, but are deserving of those as well.
Thank you so much, Ron. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing your experience and expertise with us. And a special thanks to our audience, to our listeners for joining today's conversation. We appreciate your commitment to supporting veterans and growing your business. We look forward to having you to join us on our next episode. To our veteran-owned small business community and to NCA, continue to do what you're doing, making sure that at the end of life, our veterans are laid to rest with dignity and respect. Thank you for joining us today and have a great day.
Straight Talk, Straight Answers. Straight Answers for those trying to do business with VA and our collaborators.